And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single-family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Welcome to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. My name is Al Gordon. That's Josh. That's Victoria. You figure out which is which as we go through the show. And the most important thing that I want you to understand about what's going to happen today is that I have brought some Lifestyles Unlimited members onto the show. They're personal friends of mine, and they didn't start out that way. They started out as colleagues, but I think we've developed a friendship. What do you guys think? Do we have a friendship?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should start the show by saying, "Hey, welcome to the show, guys. Glad you're here." But it's the way I'm approaching this show is that we've already gotten past the small talk. Anytime I have the opportunity to talk with you guys, we're able to talk raw. We're able to talk personal. We're able to talk about real estate. We're able to talk about relationships. We're able to talk about having fun. We're able to talk about the fact that, we live on lakes. We're able to convey messages that only we kind of understand because we've gone through a similar experience called Lifestyles Unlimited. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, no, I think that, we joined that community. We didn't quite know what we were getting into, but we met so many great people along the way, and you being one of them. So yeah, anytime, you're walking into an event and, always see your face in the distance, it's just like walking into Cheers or walking into a bar and seeing all your old friends. Like it's just something that we've, really cherished and have built throughout the years of being at Lifestyles.
That's right. Instead of Norm, it was Al. Yeah.
It's the community of Lifestyles Unlimited is very infectious. I don't think any of us have any idea of how powerful that community is until we actually set foot into it. And I was a little taken back at first. I was amazed at how open and sharing everybody was within the community. I was also taken back by how welcoming everybody was. What experience did you guys have when you joined like 2 years after I did?
Pretty similar experience. I had been a member of different RIAs, different real estate associations before, and I never found a group that was as welcoming and open and helpful with everything. The actual family of Lifestyles is the most powerful part of being a member of Lifestyles. It really is. It's everyone's welcoming, and everyone is just willing to help.
Yeah, I came into it a little more skeptical. Josh was pretty when we joined Lifestyles. We had joined through a friend that kind of let us know about it, and Josh had worked with this friend for a long time and knew that this was the direction he wanted to go next. But it took me some time to warm up to it and to really buy into it, I guess, before pulling the trigger. So yeah,
had to drag her along a little bit, but she ended up bringing the lead. So
I had that experience with Tina. She was the skeptic. I was the, hey, let's go jump off the edge of the cliff and do this. She was like, no, I don't think so. And let's test it first. Let's see how it works. So I invested in some properties, and they all did very well. But it took like 3 to 4 years to convince her to come on board. I mean, were you that skeptical, Victoria?
I'm not that skeptical. Me and Josh have been together for quite some time, and we had done some single family, so I knew the power of real estate. I just I didn't have the intricate parts of understanding passive investing and becoming doing syndications, and so going to the 2-day seminar that Lifestyles offers, that really allowed me to see what it looks like, and after that I felt comfortable.
Well, that's a good news story. I think a lot of people start in your lane. I think they look at Lifestyles Unlimited and they go, what are they going to teach me that I don't already know? And I mean, in your case, you guys, now, unbeknownst to the audience, I guess I'll just go ahead and drop the bombshell. You guys were real estate investors prior to becoming Lifestyles Unlimited members. Very, very similar to me. You had what, 20 some odd plus years of real estate investing experience. Am I on track?
No, you're on track. Yeah, I bought my first investment property at 19 and did quite a few during my 20s and so on. And then, but yeah, I had a lot of real estate experience before joining Lifestyles in a lot of
Why
different aspects.
why Lifestyles Unlimited? What was it that you felt you were lacking that Lifestyles Unlimited provided?
That's a very good question. So what I tell people is, I invested for years and honestly did well. I I mean, I did well with my investments, but it was always, kind of a cat and mouse searching for the next deal. There was no roadmap, there was no system in place to duplicate. So I would just be extremely selective on the properties that I did and ones that I knew the numbers backwards and forward. But I wasn't able to scale to the point of being able to do it full time um, after a while. I was doing a lot of deals before the Great Recession, and that's when I kind of took a break from real estate because I saw a lot of people around me just get, decimated in single family. So after then, I kind of went back to the corporate world. I was still doing some real estate here and there, but just kind of, like I said, when I'd find a deal, a steal, I would do it. Lifestyles kind of, I was in the corporate world, and a guy I worked with who had zero real estate experience was talking to me about, he bought his 12th single family house and was about to buy his first apartment building. And I was like, how in the heck are you doing that? Like, we
Yeah,
would
that's
talk
kind
at
of
lunch
mind
or
blowing.
whatever. And he started talking about this group, and I was like, oh man, I listened to when I used to go for jogs, I would listen to the Dell radio show. I would do or the yeah, I guess it was the Dell Walmsley radio show. I would listen to you guys um when I was jogging because it was always like they're actually saying it right. There's a lot of noise out there, and this company's actually doing it right. But I wasn't really thinking about joining or anything because I already had been doing so many real estate deals. But when I would talk to my friend at work just over and over and over again, I'm like, this is the community we need to be a part of because of the community and the education and just the ability to have a group guide you and direct you because I had been doing it through different partnerships, I guess, but more or less on our own for 20 years. And it's so
Yeah,
much easier and so much more fulfilling when you're part of the group, being able to do it, together and kind of the rising tide lifts all boats. I love it.
yeah, no, I
So
absolutely agree with you, Josh. You're 100% on track. I had that same experience. In the next segment, we're going to get back into our discussion. Stick around. Welcome back to the show. So let me give you some background on Josh and Victoria. I mean, they were doing real estate. They were buying single family. They were working real hard. They're working their corporate America jobs. What were you guys putting in, like 60, 70 hours a week? What was a typical week like for you guys?
Yeah, I was working at a big box retailer as a general manager. So I was probably putting in 60 to 65 hours a week. Josh worked for an energy company and was traveling, probably working 70 hours a week. Um, yeah, we had 3 kids.
it was a
It
lot.
was a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much time for a marriage, let alone time for your kids, let alone the fact that you're working for somebody else that pretty much has control over your entire life, right?
That's right. Yeah, as an employee, you're at the beck and call. So, and I was over in my last role in corporate America. I was over the North America for my segment. So I was constantly traveling the different regions to make sure everything was running this way or that way. It was exhausting. So yeah,
So What's that like for you, Victoria? I mean, you're the love of your life is having to bounce all over the country. He's not as home as much as you would like. You're not as home as much as you like, yet you still have three beautiful kids that you're trying to raise. What kind of frustrations were you dealing with?
Yeah, it was exhausting. We had a lot of conversations about, this what we're currently doing isn't working. That we need to find a different map. We need to figure out how to spend more time with our family. Um, I think Josh knew that real estate could get us there, and it took me a little bit of time to get on board. But we needed a better map, and I think that's what we were lacking, was trying to figure out what would get us there the fastest and what number we needed to feel comfortable to be able to leave one of our W-2 jobs so we could focus on it full time.
So, Josh, how many single family properties had you put under your belt, so to speak, by the time you made the decision to become a Lifestyles Unlimited member?
I had done about 400 single family properties before
Four
joining
hundred.
Lifestyles.
400. And had you been able to leave corporate America with 400 single family properties?
Yeah, I had during my 20s. So I started doing real estate because I was a firefighter, and I worked 24 on, 48 off. So during my 48 hours off, I started doing real estate, and I was doing fix and flips before all the TV shows and all that. That was my introduction into real estate, and I ended up holding quite a few properties as well. But a lot of those 400 were over more or less a 10-year span up to the Great Recession. I started doing volume. I had my own construction company. I had my own property management company, asset management company. I had realtors that worked for me full time. I just, built a very strong buying and selling business. And I was doing 3 to 5 houses a month for years until the Great Recession and everything overnight completely halted. So I remember exactly where I was when everything shifted. So by that time I had left the fire department because the business was going so strong. I'd left the fire department for 3 years, 3.5 years before um, the Great Recession and before the market just tanked. So I was stuck holding about a dozen properties at that time that were not worth even what I had in them. So those properties I held, I held on to them. I was paying private money, hard money rates on them. So there was a lot of, interesting, interesting times there. But yeah, I became an accidental landlord on those and held them until, I could basically break even on those and just get out of them. But up until that point, it had gone pretty well, actually very well. So
So you were one of those famous flippers that existed before the TV shows existed. You were doing real well. You were riding the tide of rapid appreciation, but you got caught up in the savings and loan debacle, even though maybe you weren't borrowing from them. The whole investing pyramid kind of collapsed when the lending structure collapsed. And that did it destroy you, or I mean, how bad was it?
it was bad. It didn't destroy me because I'm a saver by nature. Um, I always was taught to live well below your means and whatnot. So I always did that. Even when times were really good, I always, would save away because you never know what's going to happen. None of us really saw that coming, to that extent, at least the people that I knew, but it hurt. It basically, what it did in the Atlanta market, which I was in, it was, you were just out of business. Like, I had, a dozen properties or whatnot, but there was no buying or selling anymore because a third of every single house on the market was a foreclosure or short sale. So between '07, '08, '09, like it just stopped. Business just, there was no, you could find deals all day long. And the people that did really well chose that opportunity to buy a lot of properties at a discount. I wasn't in that mindset because I kind of had, I was kind of shell shocked by it because for me, it was overnight. I still remember exactly where I was sitting when it shut down. And yeah, it was years. I had 18 people working for me full time. I thought, we'll weather the storm, we'll get through this. I still was paying them. I was having them do this. I kind of shifted to doing renovations for other people at the time because I'd already done that some anyway. Because I had a lot of people. When you have crews, you have to keep them busy. That's the biggest thing. You have to keep people busy, or they find someone else to work for. So try to shift that way. But the whole market was so depressed. No one was renovating much of anything. So it was a struggle for several years, and I lived off savings. I lived off savings and continued paying employees until I could no longer do that. And yeah, that's kind of what thrust me back into the corporate America world. I was kind of done with it, and I still continue doing real estate here and there after that if I found a deal. But it was it was brutal. I had friends that were decimated by the market, lost everything. So mentally, if you take emotions out of it, if you take, the human element out of it, it sounds like just a great time to start buying. But I wasn't in the mental headspace to be able to do that at that time because
Yeah,
I was in survival mode.
yeah, you were following a completely different business model than what we learn at Lifestyles Unlimited. I mean, you were effectively self-employed. You built a business around being self-employed. You were reliant upon a market to continue to go up, and when the bottom fell out, it just destroyed your business model. I mean, you didn't do anything wrong, but the economy did something that affected you. So sounds like a bad news story, but there's a silver lining to all of this. And we're going to learn what it is in the next segment. Stick around. Welcome back to the show. So, Josh, I mean, you were, man, you were about ready to make me break out in tears in the last segment because you were describing a very, very painful time in your life. I mean, a business that you had built up that was very successful. You had employees that relied upon you, and you were doing everything in your power to keep that business alive, although the economy was against you, market forces were against you, things you had no control over were absolutely against you, but you made it through. Did you not?
Absolutely. Yeah, made it through it. And even during the time, I wanted to make sure I knew things were going to eventually turn around. So I made sure all my relationships were intact. I made sure if I said I was going to do something, I still did it. If I said I was going to pay something, I still paid it. So I wanted to make sure during that time that, you know, I was always taught, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and 5 minutes to run it. That if I had the ability, I was going to still fulfill all the obligations you know, that I signed up for, that I told people, that I shook hands here and there. So that's what I did, and there was a lot of peace in that, a lot of internal peace, about trying to do the right thing when it was tough. So
Yeah, I'm still wanting to break down in tears, man, because that was a painful time. I mean, I was going through a development deal myself. I had similar experiences. I got out, I lost money in the deal, and it kind of put a distaste in my life, or in my mouth, I should say, for real estate. I mean, what about you? Did you feel kind of burned by the thing that you kind of embraced?
I did, and that's why I transitioned back to corporate America. That's actually what brought me to Texas. It took me several years to kind of get that taste out of my mouth. Um, Even though it didn't completely decimate me, it was a Mike Tyson punch to the gut for sure. And you still
Yeah.
have, us talking about it now just because we went through similar experiences. It's a little bit of PTSD with it, but you
Yeah.
learn from that. And for me, it's all about learning and growing. And I learned you know, the biggest thing I learned from that was the people who were buying and holding were just fine. Their rents actually went up. And I had people very close to me that were buying and holding, and it was a speed bump for them. It was a brick wall for me, and it was a speed bump for them, and they're investing. So it was a mental shift for me to where buying and holding is where it's at. That's where the actual wealth accumulation comes from. Before then, like you mentioned, I had a business, and it was a great business. I had a lot of fun doing it, but at the end of it, when it shut down, it shut down. But if I would have held on to more of those properties, I would have been just fine and weathered the storm. And over time, the funny thing is I had just sold a block of like 20 about 6 months before then that I was holding. So I'd buy and sell some, I'd wholesale some, and some I held on to for a couple of years for different reasons, for different tax purposes and whatnot. That I had just sold a block before then, and did well. So I mean, it was fine. But I was like, man, hindsight's always 2020. I wish I would have just held those properties, you know, and just kind of ridden the wave. But yeah, it taught me to refocus my investing strategy from quick flips to the long term gains of buying and holding. So
So how did Lifestyles Unlimited come into the picture? Because it sounds like to me that you've course corrected, you've kind of figured things out. So why the need to become a member of Lifestyles Unlimited?
well, when I worked with my buddy and he was going over what he was doing, he so the guy I worked with introduced me to lifestyles, and he had been doing a lot of single family himself, and he had been doing, he was started doing his first league deal, and I just could not believe that someone that had no prior experience in education was able to do all this. What I had done through trial and error over the years, he had just, was doing in a relatively short period of time. So I talked to him more and more about it, and then we ended up going to the uh, the 2 day seminar that actually discusses the ins and outs. And it was just like, this is exactly. I mean, I was more or less ready to join beforehand because of um, the case study that was right in front of me every day at work. Um, and knowing, what I knew about real estate, everything he was saying was right. Everything, it, it jived with what my own personal experience had been. And I was still doing some real estate on the side here and there, but working as much as I was working, we wanted, I discussed it with Victoria, and she finally ended up coming along, but it was that roadmap, that, that direction book of doing this and this to get this result that I had never had before. So even though I did well, I didn't have it down to, I and to me, LU is kind of science. You know, you do this and this is your result. Obviously, there's outside factors that can affect anything, which we learn, but the roadmap and the community is just it's amazing. It's definitely something that you don't find outside in the outside world. So
So Victoria, I'm gonna switch over to you because we probably just need to give Josh a little break because he's been running the whole show for me. But what I want to focus on is your experience while Josh has been going through all of this. I mean, you're watching the man that you fell in love with build up a business and watching that business kind of crumble due to no fault of his own, and he's going through what he's going through, and then he kind of puts real estate on the side, but then gets inspired to do real estate again. So what's it like from your perspective watching the man you love go through all of that?
Yeah, so a lot of what he went through in Georgia happened, but actually right before we met. So he actually, when he transitioned and went into the corporate world, went into an energy company. That's why he moved to Texas. So that's when we met 13 years ago was when that happened. So that's
Ah,
partly why the stories that I had heard was what had happened in 08, 09. That's what I had learned about real estate. And I was like, I don't know if I'm like when when he's wanting to get back into it. The only familiarity I had was what he had gone through. So it was a definite. Took me a minute to decide if that I hadn't seen. He had kind of seen all the lessons and could see where it would be. I was a little more skeptical because I was still learning, but what I had seen was that story. So it took me some time to get on board.
And on board you guys are, because you've done a lot of stuff since you became members of Lifestyles Unlimited. I mean, you've liquidated some single family holdings, you've bought multifamily apartment communities. What's it been like? And Josh, are you still in corporate America?
No, I'm not. So I left corporate America almost 3 years ago to focus on our apartments and our lead deals full time. So
Well, that's
it's
kind of
been
that's
great.
kind of cool. That's kind of
Yeah,
cool. I mean, you left real estate to go to corporate America, and real estate brought you back from corporate America.
that's right. Hallelujah. It did. And yeah, I don't think that I would have been able to do it, that we would have been able to do it without Lifestyles Unlimited. Really don't.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd agree with you on that. I'm in the same boat you're in. I couldn't have done what I have done. I couldn't have achieved the results that I've achieved if I hadn't taken a chance on Lifestyles Unlimited. And if I literally hadn't gone to lifestylesunlimited.com and clicked on start here, like the members of our audience ought to do, because that's where the rubber meets the road. In the next segment, we're going to get into the investing piece. Stick around. So, guys, break down for me what the game plan was after you had educated yourself by doing what Lifestyles Unlimited does, providing you the real estate investor education and mentoring services that you utilized and you put into action. What was the initial plan once you formulated it?
Yeah, I think our initial plan was that because we were working so hard on single family and doing still working full time and doing a lot of the work ourselves, was that we wanted to take a more passive route. So we wanted to be passive investors and put money in and have it work for us. So initially that's where we started. But once we saw, what our friends were doing, we're like, wait a second, like, why don't we try to get out of our jobs? And the fast way to do that is if we syndicated a deal ourselves. So for us, initially the goal was to be passive investors, but it shifted pretty quickly within probably a year and a half to where we realized that this could get us out of our corporate jobs a lot faster.
So, how did it play out? What did you do?
so we started looking for deals. So, well, first we decided to become lead certified. So we went through the training. We went through the training and education for that. So we made the decision. We're going to become leads. We're going to do this. Then we started looking for deals. We underwrote a lot of deals. And I had done 4 IROs. I forgot to mention, in all the single family I've done 4 IROs before joining Lifestyles as well during that time span, during my life before LU. So I had an understanding of apartments. I had taken apartments that were less than 50% occupied, got rid of the other 50% in some not so great areas, and rented them again. I'd done all of that before, renovated them. I just did not have the roadmap to do it, and what Lifestyles teaches on fixing everything up front. I mom and popped it because I didn't know any better. So I had that background. So I knew that with the training and education and support, that I believed we could do, we could do well as leads. We could really bless other people as well with you know with our deals, and that's a big thing for us, is being able to kind of have everybody rise with us on our stuff. So
I mean, that's the
And we
Lifestyles Unlimited way, right?
absolutely.
And we started out small. It was a smaller apartment. We really wanted to make sure that we were comfortable and knew what we were doing before, making sure that that was the right fit for us and moving forward.
Yeah, our first deal was a 29 unit, And yeah, we actually just sold that deal in December last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And everybody that invested was happy?
Very.
Very happy.
Very happy. Those are the kind of results we're looking for, right? Happy investors that get the results that they invested for, right? And of course, you got the same kind of returns. You did well yourselves. So you made money, cash flow, you made equity capture along the way, you did some forced depreciation along the way, you had principal pay down, you had natural appreciation, you had tax benefits, you had all kinds of things working for you. And after you sold it, all those things went away, right?
Well, they go away in one aspect, but what you do is you find another deal to put all that into, and you start the journey all over again.
Ah, so it's not one and done, huh?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah.
So you're continuously building your portfolio. Let me ask, I'm going to ask you a question, and it may sound very elementary, but I'm trying to make a point to the audience, and this is a point I've been kind of hammering on this entire week. What's the first thing that you do when you're looking at a potential property? Do you run right to the property and tour it? Do you run financial analysis? Do you guess? What do you do?
So the first thing before we even look at a specific property, we familiarize ourselves with the market around it. So we're not just going in blind. So I'm a firm believer in being an expert. And wherever you're going to invest, you need to know the ins and outs of it. So we know the market. We already know what the rents are going for, more or less, And then, so once you receive something from a broker, or you receive, information on a property, it you can vet it. It makes the vetting process more streamlined, and you can vet it more efficiently and just all the way around, because you already know basically what the rents are going for in that area. You know the cost of doing business in that area. You know the taxes, the insurance, all the things that, well, the taxes, insurance is kind of property dependent, but all the things that really help you underwrite it. You know, we believe in becoming kind of doing the guerrilla research up front and picking the market in the area that we want, that fits our numbers and fits our criteria, and then vetting the deals. But always run the financials on a property before going to visit it or whatnot. A lot of times it's back of a napkin. Hey, this is what I think they'll take for this. So you go drive by it, and it's like, well, if we can get it for this and this and this, then the numbers work or not. So, but always run the financials. Now with technology and Street View, Google Street View, and all that, you can see a lot on a property before you actually go out there and start pounding the pavement. So,
Do you use AI to help you develop that data?
I do not. We do not yet. We're just starting to
kind of dig into that.
dig into AI. I'm such a control freak with that kind of stuff
Do you
that
trust AI?
certain things we've tested it with certain things, and some things have been great, and some things that are just epic fails. So, but we're very new with utilizing AI. So we know people. We have friends. We have friends in LU that utilize AI. I mean, quite effectively. So, I think it's a great tool.
But I think also the more you use it and the more it knows your searches and what you look for, and it kind of builds a profile on you, it has become a lot more helpful because it builds that history of knowing what we do and where we're at, that it definitely can, suggest things where you're like, oh yeah, you do know where I invest in that market area. So I do see the benefits of continuing to use it and it continuing to kind of have that knowledge. And
yeah, and for research purposes, what I have used it for is, 3-bedroom, 1.5 baths in this market. What are the average rents? And it kind of gives you, that kind of information that helps. But you still want to you still got to do the groundwork. You still got to call the apartments. You still got to verify everything yourself. that all the information that it's spitting out is, accurate. Because sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. So
Yeah, it's a trust but verify situation, right?
sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So let me just ask a question that I'm sure everybody in the audience is wondering about. Where do you like to invest?
So our market that we primarily invest in is the Cincinnati market, Cincinnati, Ohio market, which really encompasses part of Indiana, Ohio, and northern Kentucky in a metro area.
And where are you right now?
We are in Canyon Lake, Texas right now.
And you kind of call Canyon Lake, Texas, which is outside of San Antonio, home, right?
We do. We do. This is our home.
Couldn't you have found an apartment building a little closer to the house? Come on, Josh.
You would think. You would think. I'd owned in different pockets around the country before. So for me, it was about the market in the area more so than the proximity. We would love to own in our backyard. That would be awesome. But when we started looking ourselves, we couldn't really find the deals that met our criteria, met our returns, met without getting into different loans and all that. We like to do things very straight laced, and it just the market in 2021, 2022, when we started as leads, it was outside of our comfort zone here. And in the Midwest and in that market, we made the conscious decision. It's going to take a lot of time away. It's going to, I'm going to spend half of my life, in the Cincinnati area. So we had to make sure we liked it, which we actually love the area. It's a great area. But just, focus in our business in that one market, and also choosing not to do a deal there, do a deal here, do a deal, kind of all over the place. Because we really wanted to be, masters of a specific market, really know the market in and out. So if there's any shift, if there's any, softening of rents, if there's anything, that we're ahead of it and we're not playing catch up.
And just using economies of scale, because if we had found other markets, then we're building it all over again from the ground up. So for us, we've been there 5 years and know it very well, and use the same vendors for 5 years that we've used on the first property that we use on the third and fourth property. So just being able to really be experts in that one area.
Yeah, it works for us.
Yeah, it does. Plus, there's a community of Lifestyles Unlimited members that also invest in that particular area. So that just helps you with the network. Hey, guys, we're at the end of the episode. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And if you want to do what Josh and Victoria are doing, you want to do what I'm doing, you want to do what the 50,000 members of Lifestyles Unlimited are doing, go to lifestylesunlimited.com, click on Start Here, and let's get you going.
Thank you for listening to Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Ready for more of the map? Visit lifestylesunlimited.com. Explore our videos and articles. Click on the radio tab to access past show podcasts. View the radio show schedule and listen to our best of radio shows. Want to continue the conversation? Follow Lifestyles Unlimited on Facebook today. We want to meet you as well. Sign up for a free workshop at lifestylesunlimited.com. Until next time, remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this station, its affiliates, its management, or advertisers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.